Hell's Whisper. A stolen soul dwells in a dark hole, wallowing in eternal despair, waiting quietly for an innocent to fall victim to its snare. Its wails from hell penetrate the walls, the next taking to begin. If a cursed home sits empty with no one around, can anyone hear the screams that come from within? I was 15 years old the first time I saw it. My dad had just accepted a new job in upstate New York, so of course it wasn't long after that I, my mom, and my 4 brothers and sisters had everything loaded up in a trailer and were headed to our new home. It was a quaint little town with beautiful fall-colored trees overlooking a vast lake that seemed to stretch as far as the eye could see. Under any other circumstances, it would have been the perfect place to live. But try explaining that to any other kid in the beginnings of their high school career, having to leave their friends and everything else they'd ever known behind. But with that in mind, I wanted to try and make the best of it. Little did I know, that day, driving through the beautiful countryside would be the start of one of the darkest years of my life. We pulled into the driveway of a gorgeous village home that was larger than anything we'd ever lived in before. It didn't take long for my frown to disappear as I ran up the front porch steps and greeted my dad as he pulled me close and wrapped his arms around me. "Well, do you like it?" he asked excitedly. "I actually kind of love it, Dad," I said, probably more surprised to hear myself saying it than he was hearing it. The place was incredible. It was a 2-story white house with huge windows and a massive wraparound porch that featured a perfect view of the lake just over the neatly landscaped hedges across the street. I did love the water, so maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. "Just wait until you see the inside," Dad said. I could tell he was happy to see how excited I seemed to be so far. There wasn't any doubt it was a difficult decision for him and my mom to uproot us from our lives after all we'd ever known, especially for me and my older sister Nina. I quickly ran into the house to have a look around. There was a spacious living room that opened up into a glorious kitchen. Against the opposite wall, there was a hardwood staircase that led to the second floor. I chased after Nina as she ran up them ahead of me. She stopped at a balcony that overlooked the living room and kitchen. We turned around, staring down a long hallway with 3 doors opposite the balcony. At the end of the hall, a large window featuring an incredible view of the lake took up almost the entire wall.
"Whoa, that's beautiful,"
Nina said. Just then, a loud voice from downstairs rang up the steps and echoed down the long hallway.
"Oh, did I forget to tell you?"
My mom said coyly.
"If you hadn't noticed yet, you all get your own rooms."
Nina and I looked at each other and grinned. In typical older sibling fashion, she quickly shoved me away and sprinted for the largest room at the end of the hall with an awesome bay window that looked out over the lake. I was immediately jealous, but there was not much of an argument I can make. She was undoubtedly having a tougher time with the move than I was. She left her friends, her starting spot on the varsity volleyball team, not to mention her longtime boyfriend that dumped her as soon as he found out about the move. I didn't put up a fight. She deserved the best room as I claimed the slightly smaller one next to it. Our younger sister Carly claimed the final room closest to the stairs. I immediately became confused as I wondered where the twins, our little brothers, would be rooming, so I ran downstairs, finding my mom and dad standing in the kitchen organizing the boxes full of utensils, pots, and pans.
"So did you..."
"What about the twins?" I asked, cutting my mom off, who was more than likely about to ask me what I thought of my new room.
"Oh, well, they'll be bunking down in the basement,"
she said, gesturing over her shoulder to a door under the staircase. I looked toward the door, and as I did, a dark feeling came over me, as if something behind the door was calling to me. An unintelligible whisper-like voice from nowhere slithered into my mind and set the hairs on the back of my neck reaching for the stars.
"Wes,
My mom yelled, snapping my attention back to reality.
are you okay? Where'd you go?"
"Oh, sorry," I said, trying to get my wits about me again. I thought you said we were all getting our own rooms."
"Well, I meant you and your sisters."
She looked at me, perplexed, as if confused by my lack of understanding, but it seems she could tell what I was thinking as she quickly clarified.
"I guess I misspoke. Besides, Nina graduates this year, and then you can have the big room, and the twins can take your old room. Is that okay?"
I turned away from her and looked again to the basement door as the hellish whisper invaded my mind again, but I blocked it out, turning back to my mom and quickly responding, "Yeah, that's fine." After a long day of unpacking, I went and sat on the front porch to finally take in some of the sights of my new home. There was a crisp chill in the air, but the view was unbelievable. I settled into the rocking chair, just enjoying the quiet of the night, when a voice interrupted my moment of relaxation.
So, you must be the new neighbors.
A tall brunette girl said, leaning over the porch railing to my right side. Yeah, I said, trying to reorient myself. My dad just accepted a job here,
That's awesome.
she said, nodding shyly. A long moment of awkward silence following afterward before she ran out to the steps and extended her hand forward.
I'm Stacy, by the way.
I took her nervous palm into mine and shook it as quickly as I could, introducing myself in return. Hi, I'm Wes. Another long, awkward pause followed, but she was quicker to interrupt it this time.
So, what do you think of the new place so far?
She asked. It's not bad, I said. It'll take a while before it feels like home, but it's nice to have my own room for once, and you can't beat this view.
Yeah, it's beautiful this time of year.
She said, turning toward the lake and taking a moment to admire its beauty. She quickly turned back to face me.
Hey, listen, if you're up for it, maybe I can show you around town sometime. You know, go and get some ice cream or something.
Yeah, I'd love that, I said. Looks like this is home for the foreseeable future, so I better get to know my way around the place.
For sure.
She said.
We'll see if you guys last any longer than the Reynolds or the Smiths or the Rodriguezes before that.
She chuckled awkwardly as if there was some kind of inside joke that I was supposed to catch on to. So I just chuckled with her for a moment like I understood, but my curiosity got the better of me. Wait, what do you mean? I said. She stopped laughing immediately and looked at me like she hadn't expected to explain herself.
I mean, well, it's just nobody lasts longer than like 6 months in this place.
She looked up at the house and then back down at me. I could see the discomfort etched across her face, like she knew something about the house that I had yet to discover, like it made sense to her why so many families seemed to come and go without so much as being able to paint a few walls. I still don't understand, I said. What are you not telling me? I forced another chuckle, trying to make it seem like I wasn't completely fooled, hoping this was some prank she was just trying to play on the new kid.
Nah, it's nothing.
She said, trying to brush it off with a quick change of subject.
So what do you...
No, really, tell me. My face was serious now, but so was hers. If this was a prank, then she was a much better actress than I would have originally thought. I didn't budge, though. I stared her down hard until she finally caved.
I mean...
She looked down at the ground as if contemplating how truthful to be.
It's nothing, really. I got pretty close with the Reynolds. Well, with their son Rudy, more specifically. He lived here with his family just before you guys. He was our age. He always talked about how creepy the house was, and about how he had this feeling like he was being watched while he was inside. I never thought much of it. I mean, these houses are pretty old. There's no telling what kind of pops, groans, or creaks you'll hear in the middle of the night. I'd come over to hang out sometimes, you know, watch movies and stuff. And yeah, it didn't take long for me to feel creeped out in that house. But I always thought it was just because he had convinced me with all the stuff he talked about. But then he told me about the basement, and how he thought something was down there. I laughed it off, of course. I mean, I've never believed in ghosts or demons or anything like that. So I said, let's go down there then. It took some prodding, but he finally agreed, very reluctantly, I might add. But as soon as we opened the door, the air changed. It was like the oxygen had been sucked out of my lungs. There was a dank, mildewy scent that seemed like it had permeated through the cement walls. At that point, it was too late to chicken out, though. As we began to descend the stairs, I could have sworn I heard a voice. Not a sweet or obvious one, but something that felt dark, like something you hear in the movies, speaking some foreign language or something.
My stomach became unsettled. Was that not the same voice I thought I'd heard earlier that afternoon? I tried to ignore that feeling and tune back into what she was saying, but the more she spoke, the more visibly upset she seemed to be getting. For a moment, I thought I could see tears forming in her eyes. I didn't stop her, though. I needed to know.
For whatever reason, whoever built the house put the only light switch at the bottom of the stairs. That was probably the worst part. Enduring that voice through the darkness as you took each step, just praying that the light bulb wasn't burnt out when you finally got to the bottom and flipped it on. We took a couple more steps, and then, there in the dark, just at the bottom, it was like there was a person staring, waiting for us to come closer. That was it for me. I turned and ran back up the stairs and swore to never go in that house again.
Wes, time for dinner. My dad hollered from inside the house. My dad's voice seemed to shake Stacy back into the present. The wetness in her eyes quickly dried and she seemed relieved to be able to stop talking about the house. "Well, thanks for swinging by," I said. "I guess I've got to head in now."
Oh yeah, no problem at all. But hey, I really would love to hang out sometime if you ever get a moment free.
"Absolutely," I said. "After that little story you told me, I'll probably want to spend as much time away from here as I can." I said it jokingly, but I was really giving her one last opportunity to tell me it was all just a joke. But her face tightened again, and I knew that she was telling the truth.
Well, see you later,
she said, eyeing the house on the way back to hers next door. Dinner that night was just like any other. We sat around the table and talked about what we planned to do with our last few days before the weekend ended, and we started school. We talked about whether Nina was going to try out for the volleyball team, and what Stacy and I had talked about when she came over. After the obvious jokes about whether or not I thought she was cute, I decided to take control of the conversation again. "So, guys, our house back home wasn't even close to this size. How did you guys afford it?" My mom and dad exchanged a bewildered glance before my dad finally broke the silence. "To be honest with you, I don't know," he said. "The realtor just said that the sellers were extremely motivated and needed to get out. We put in what seemed like an impossibly low offer, and they accepted without any hesitation. Besides what looks like maybe some water damage in the basement, the house was an absolute steal, and a deal we just couldn't pass up." I looked again to the basement door. I knew why the previous owners couldn't wait to get out of here, but I didn't say anything, still thinking about how crazy it all sounded. I started thinking of my two little brothers and what it would be like for them in that dark basement. Maybe I could offer to swap. No, it would be fine. There are no such things as ghosts or demons, or whatever it was that the last family, or the family before that, thought that they were hosting down there. The sun gave way to the moon that evening and I laid down in bed, mostly having forgotten about the whole thing. The lights went out in the house and I closed my eyes to try to get some sleep, returning to the hopeful excitement that I felt driving past the lake and looking up at our massive new house. I don't remember how long I was asleep before being awoken, but I do vividly remember taking a knee to the rib and then an elbow to the nose shortly thereafter. My twin brothers were monopolizing over half of the bed on either side of me with several more kicks and punches to follow. "What are you guys doing up here?" I said frustratedly.
We couldn't sleep.
Tim said.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody keeps whispering at us.
Tom said shortly after, and like an addiction relapse, I remembered everything from earlier that day. Was there really something down there? I still didn't believe it, but finding sleep again that night proved difficult to say the least. That next morning I took the twins with me to investigate. I needed to know what it was they heard so I could debunk it and put my mind at ease. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't shivering with nervousness. Up to this point, I hadn't ventured any closer than a few feet from the door. As we moved toward it, almost as if on cue, the ethereal whispering ravaged my eardrums again. Fear immediately struck me. I thought to turn back but remembered my little brothers at my side. They looked up to me, and I wanted to keep it that way. I couldn't chicken out before even opening the door. I fought my better judgment, turned the knob, and pulled it open. The deathly whispering intensified, blasting me like a windstorm after opening a window. I turned to my brothers behind me. "Is that what y'all heard?" They looked at each other confused.
What are you talking about?
Tim said.
Yeah, I don't hear anything.
Tom said. To me, the voice was unmistakable, but they seemed unfazed, so I carried on. The further down the steps I went, the darker the pathway got. And just like Stacy had said the night before, there, down at the bottom of the steps, shrouded in darkness, it seemed something was staring back at us. I froze on the spot.
What are you waiting for?
Tim said, nudging me to go on. "Hey, chill out. I tried to think of a good lie. "I'm just making sure I don't fall since the light is at the bottom of the stairs, okay?" After a couple more seconds of psyching myself up and fighting through that terrible whispering, I ran down the remaining steps, reaching my hand around the wall and flipped on the light. The evil whisper immediately stopped, and the room illuminated just as quickly. I jumped in shock as I saw the thing that was staring up at us. It was one of my mom's fake trees she liked to have around for decoration. After being down there just a few seconds, I moved my hand to my nose. There definitely was a less than pleasant, mildewy stench, but nothing that couldn't be done away with a good air freshener. A few seconds later, a soft bang echoed from within the closet. A high-pitched hissing sound followed.
That's it. That's the whispering sound we kept hearing all night.
Tim said. I wrenched open the closet to see an old water heater staring back at me. the sharp hissing noises bellowing from it as it cranked even hotter with gas. "Geez, boys, you had me worried about nothing. This is just the thing that makes sure we get to take hot showers every day." Now that I knew what the whispering was, we turned out the light and started back up the stairs, but almost at once I could hear the death-like whisper again, and this time I thought I could feel dark eyes staring a hole through my back. I turned slowly again to see the dark figure seemingly watching me, but I knew what it was this time, just a stupid tree. And I knew what the whispering was too, right? I hurried up the rest of the stairs, no longer worried about what could be haunting the basement. The rest of the year continued without much issue. School seemed to be going fine, and I felt like I was really starting to feel at home here. Stacy and I were getting pretty close and spent most of our time together, but no matter what I said, she still couldn't be convinced to go back in the house, even after I explained to her there was nothing to worry about. Despite all the good I was experiencing here, the nighttime never got much better. More often than not, the twins would wind up in my room, taking up too much space in my too small bed. And no matter how much explaining I did, their story kept changing. The annoying whispering soon became scary whispering, to now feeling like somebody was sitting at the edge of their bed, or touching them on their face as they slept. I'd go back down into the basement many more times throughout that year, hearing the same ominous whispering and feeling those same dark eyes staring up at me as I worked up the courage to traverse down those steps. But no amount of investigation ever turned up anything new. Just an old water heater and a fake plant that presented itself as something much scarier when shrouded in darkness. But the Halloween of '97, everything changed. My parents both went to a costume party that my dad's work was hosting. My older sister took my little sister and the twins trick-or-treating, and I stayed at the house to order some pizza, put on some gym shorts, and rewatch one of the terrible horror movies I'd seen 100 times too many. What made the night perfect, though, was that Stacy was going to come over and watch the movie with me. As we'd gotten closer over that past year, I was finally able to convince her that there was nothing to fear in the basement. What made her decide to do so on the scariest day of the year, I'll never know. The night started off great. We ate a few slices of pizza and got comfortable on the couch. My siblings made it home not long after that and readied themselves for bed. My sisters complained about the excessive walking they had to do and the colder than normal temperatures for that time of year. We laughed and told stories for the next few minutes, which in hindsight might have been the last moments of normalcy I will ever remember feeling. Stacy began to doze off on my shoulder, and her soft, subtle breathing caused me to drift into a light sleep myself. I don't know how long I was out, but I was suddenly awakened by the screams of my twin brothers below us in the basement. My sisters on the second floor came running down the stairs at a frantic pace as both Stacy and I leapt from the couch, the four of us racing toward the basement door. The screaming carried on as I wrenched the door open, the evil whispering echoing between my eardrums. Then, the scream from a hellish voice threw us all back to the floor as the door slammed shut seemingly by itself. My twin brothers shrieked in agony beneath us as we all shot to our feet and pulled frantically at the door. It wouldn't open. Try as we might, it wouldn't budge. Finally, with the strength of all four of us, we pulled it open, breaking the door handle in the interim. We stuffed ourselves through the opening, lights off, the terrible whispering of full-fledged voice now, and my brother still screaming in the distance. But we stopped cold in our tracks. No longer was there a vague shadow looking up at us from the bottom step. Rather, a pale, human-like creature sat crouched about midway up the stairs, ready to pounce. As we stared down at it and it back at us, my brothers had stopped screaming, and the deathly whispering now had an origin, coming from the mouth of the thing waiting for us on the stairs.
Wes, what do we do?
Stacy whispered at my side. I was reminded that she was still here, and amidst all the chaos of the moment, I still found the time to feel guilty for winning her trust, only to deliver her to this demon. I stood there frozen on the top step, but in a moment of clarity, I thought of my helpless brothers below. I charged the creature, expecting to tackle it down the stairs, but as I leaned forward, preparing for impact, it disappeared, and I tumbled painfully to the bottom. Sisters and Stacy chased after me, screaming my name as I got to my feet. I fought through the pain and flipped the switch against the wall. For no more than a second, the room lit up. I'll forever remember that second. I saw my twin brothers levitating in the air, lifeless, no screams coming from within them, and just beneath them, as if prepared to devour them, was the creature from the stairs. It had grotesque, pale white skin with all manner of bloody gashes covering its body. A mess of long, stringy black hair fell to below its shoulders. In that moment it turned to me and wailed a carnivorous howl. I looked into its dead, black eyes, its face, A demon-like countenance with jagged, sharp yellowing and black teeth, with some kind of black substance oozing from its mouth like a rabid animal. In that moment, the light bulb burst, and I heard 2 heavy thuds slam to the ground. My brothers had fallen from their levitating position. Without any regard for ourselves, the 4 of us rushed over to them, feeling for them in the dark. We scooped them up and hurried them up the stairs and away from whatever that thing was. I didn't know it at that moment, but that was the last time any of us would descend those basement steps ever again. We frantically called my parents as we rushed the twins to the hospital. A couple of paramedics ran through the door with gurneys. They loaded my brothers onto them, wheeled them through the door, and ushered them around the corner. Life would never be the same after that night. Stacy, of course, kept her distance from me, knowing that some otherworldly creature had indeed made its home in our basement. The relationship within our family couldn't withstand the evil of that night either. My sister spent years grappling with understanding what really happened, and my parents never looked at any of us the same way again. They weren't present that night to see what had really unfolded, and no amount of pleading and begging would make them believe what we'd all experienced down in that basement. What they did know was that the 3 of us allowed something to happen to the twins that night, or at least didn't stop it from happening. We moved to a nearby town shortly after the incident, of course, but our lives were forever changed. That Halloween night, as the twins came through the doors smiling and showing off their huge candy hauls from the night's work, was the last time I would ever speak to them. To this day, they remain in a coma, not having woken since that moment they were silenced by whatever demonic presence had taken control of them that night. This fate they now suffer through is a fate worse than death, as I have no doubt they wallow in a silent, voiceless pain still under the power of the creature in whatever hell it truly calls home. I visit them regularly, sitting silently by their beds, listening to their machines beeping in time, waiting for the day they'll wake up and tell me what really happened, and why it chose that night to attack. I leave the hospital once again, getting into my car as another passes behind me. Headlights briefly reflect in my rearview mirror. In that moment, I see it again. The terrible face of the thing as it sits behind me, shrieking at me, just like it did that night all those years ago. Just as it does every time a ray of light takes the time to remind me of what was taken from me that night. I turn on the car and crank the music as loud as it'll go, once again failing to drown out the whispering voice that has plagued me since the final time I left that basement.